Okay, so for this next punch defense, it's just gonna be for a straight line attack. We went over the 360 defense, so that's for anything that comes from the outside. Those haymaker punches, those wild stabs. This time I'm talking about a straight line attack. It could be a straight punch, or it could have a knife in my hand and it's going to stab Justin. Justin's just going to do what we call an inside defense. So if I come and I punch at Justin, he's going to blade his body and redirect my arm away from him. And at the same time as he does that, he's going to explode in and attack.
So Cedric comes in and he's punching in a straight line to me. My initial defense is to take my hand forward across his forearm, meeting him at the wrist. After I've redirected this, I'm bursting in and driving it down to control that arm. At the same time that I'm controlling it, I'm attacking, okay? Resetting that thought process. I attack as much or as little as I need to before I can then escape out of that place.
The other thing that I noticed, if I could just comment on this technique as well, so if you could just demonstrate it one more time. So from there, the other thing that's noticed is as he pushes that down, you notice this arm is actually farther away as well.
Yes.
You know, so instead of doing something where you might put that other arm right in harm's way, and pushing him off to the side like this, it's putting him in a position where it's actually it'd be difficult for him to punch, just because his body is pushed down this way. So that seems like that'd be another strong suit of this technique as well. Okay.
So instantly he's coming forward. I'm just redirecting. I'm controlling and attacking, and then from that point disengaging.
Okay.
If I need to continue attacking, I do.
Okay. Okay. Great. So let me go ahead and just give this a shot. First, I'll have you just do it on me so I can get a look at it, and then from there, I'll give it a shot.
Boom, boom, boom. Now, if you notice how Justin, his hips and his feet stayed squared the entire time. He wasn't chasing him like this, or he wasn't, top heavy like this. He stayed square, almost like his feet were on railroad ties the entire time. Hip to hip, square to you.
Okay. Okay. Great. So now let me go ahead and just give that a shot. Okay. So this way.
Slide.
Okay. So let me get in my proper stance here. Boom. Boom. Then down. Boom. Boom.
Now stop, freeze. Now see how you're to the side?
Yep.
You need to be squared up to him.
Okay.
Now it's gonna be easier to punch him, because before, when you were like this, trying to punch him from back here, what if you can't reach him?
Yep.
But now if you're square to him, that's all day long.
Yep, absolutely. And the thing is with your hips square like this, you would think that it kind of takes away from the amount of hip force you can use, but actually it doesn't. So even from here, you can still really just put your hips behind those punches, just like if you were doing your typical reverse hand punch in martial arts. It's a little bit shorter, it's a little bit tighter, but you can still actually get your hips in there. Okay, so let's try that just one more time. So from here, as he punches, boom, 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 boom. Okay?
Good.
So just one more thing about it. So we talked about how there's multiple defenses or multiple attacks, and we have one defense for it. So with the 360, you generally have, whether it's an open hand, a closed hand, or a knife, or a rock, you have that one defense. The same thing happens with this. So essentially you're punching me, and I have this one defense for this. I can use that same defense, so now you go to push me.
Okay.
And I defend against it. You come in to choke me and I catch it early, I defend against it. So one defense for those multiple scenarios. Anything that comes straight line at me, I use that same defense for.
Okay. So I've just got one more question. Let's say that same straight punch is coming up to your face instead of coming towards your chest. So I noticed when it was for your chest, it was very natural to force that down. Now, coming up to the head, that means a much greater distance that you need to push the arm down on. You still use the same technique?
Same technique, but not necessarily, it may not go that far down. So as it comes at my head, as you do it here, I may just be here and then drive it. I'm aiming to drive this into you here. Where the rest of it goes is up to you.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Very cool. Okay, so now let's move on to the next punching technique. Let's see, I want to ask you guys, what kind of defense do you have against uppercuts? Because, you've all seen that thing where two guys, they're up close like this, and then, sometimes they might go for an elbow, sometimes they might go for the place here, but other times you'll see somebody grab and then go for this kind of an uppercut to the stomach. Okay, I think that's a very realistic or very possible scenario for kind of guys that end up getting engaged with each other in some kind of street self-defense or things. When they're really close in like that. They just grab you and just boom, go for an uppercut. Okay, so
go ahead.
I'd like to see what kind of defenses you have against that kind of uppercut scenario.
Absolutely. So generally, it's one of those two things, the inside defense or the 360. It's probably going to depend on the distance of you and how much time I have to react.
Okay.
So if you're getting close like that, I'm generally just going to use that inside defense against that uppercut and drive in and punch.
Okay.
If it's a little bit farther away, I may just use 360 defense and punch.
Okay.
So keeping with that, still same principles, we want to keep one defense for multiple different attacks.
Okay. So then just to reiterate that, just to kind of recap it, 360 is when the arm is going out like this.
Yes.
Okay? And it's always one arm out, the other arm counter. One arm out, the other arm counter. One arm out, the other arm counter. Okay? So inside is when it's just blading like this, meaning you're turning the body sideways, and then you're using that forearm to just drive the other hand somewhere.
Yes.
Okay? So it's always going to be one of those two.
Yes.
Okay? So if it's a punch, a straight punch to the chest, I'm just blading like that. If it's maybe a punch to the face, it's the same thing. And then down, boom, boom, boom. If it's any kind of an outside or circular motion, then it's going to be that 360. Even if it's an uppercut, boom. I guess in that case, that was a really small uppercut, so you could probably blade that. But if it's bigger, same thing, 360. If it's small, boom, then you blade it. Okay? Okay? Very cool.